it was always, you know, we always have this question, oh, what would it be like if we made an XCOM where you're playing as the aliens? Now, I don't think that would work very well because your emotional connection to, like, you know, Glebe Glorp, and I mean, you just don't feel as strongly, right? You can't look at them and be like,
Glebe Glorp's all right.
Right.
He's got some wife and kids,
all right,
you know?
yeah. But you know, you just, that resonance isn't there, but we're like, well, how can we get that sort of sense?
Hello, Commander, and welcome to the final part of our 3-part series on XCOM. Today we look to the future, to 2016 on XCOM 2. See, we changed the color of the light. That's how you know we're talking about the new video game.
In yesterday's video, we talked to Jake Solomon about the challenge of bringing XCOM back, how him and his team at Firaxis had to make difficult decisions about what to cut and what to keep. In today's video, we talked to Jake about his plans for the sequel, and first things first, Jake wants to take the controlled experience of 2012's XCOM and make it a lot less predictable.
The strategy layer on XCOM Enemy Unknown is a little more linear. It was the case of, we have to be real careful, like we can't take our hands off the reins. Let's control the experience. We want it to be this hard, this hard, this hard, this hard. We need to make sure the player's advancing at this rate, this rate. When you played it multiple times, you kind of saw, okay, all right, these are the beats, this is how it works. And then we realized after we released Enemy Unknown, okay, well, people are okay with that, and we can actually take our hands off the reins and say, it's more fun to be a little more unpredictable and have these experiences where game to game you're like, whoa, that's crazy. This time it was really hard in the beginning and then I got a leg up, or the next time they got super difficult because they did all these things at the end of the game. So,
the original sequel to XCOM Terror from the Deep was essentially a reskin of the first game, but it was the Gollop Brothers sequel Apocalypse that really tried to move the needle. Interestingly, one of my memories of that game is the unpredictable strategy layer. If you played badly in early levels of Cataclysm, the aliens' aggression would actually decrease. But if you were successful and played really well in those early missions, they'd more quickly attack your home base. So what Jake is talking about, breaking out the strategy layer so it's as unpredictable as the turn-based parts of the game, makes me feel excited for a similar experience.
Yeah, and it's nice to know that there's this sort of shared knowledge out there, but they're the ones that kind of, you know, educated us on, like, we're fine, you should, you know, feel free to give us more because we're fine, you know, and that was nice. You know, you can see what they played, what they liked, and then they're like, yeah, give us more unpredictability as a designer. You're like, great, that's awesome.
Firaxis is no stranger to sequels. This is a company well aware of the challenges of releasing iterative games. So when it came to Jake and the XCOM team to make their first sequel to XCOM, they looked across the hall.
You know, we're in the same studio as Civ, right? And Civ is huge. Civ is huge. It's the biggest game that nobody views as like the biggest game in the industry. They're huge. I mean, such nice guys and girls that work on Civ. Very nice, you know, unassuming, and they just have this monster hit that they're making over there. Very replayable. Like, if you go on Steam, there's still 30, 40,000 people concurrently playing Civ 5, which came out forever ago. They do that so well, and that's what we wanted to reach, is we have a very replayable game. A lot of people still play it, but we were like, okay, we also want to make a game that when players buy it, you know, they know, like, okay, I'm spending like pennies per hour for like gameplay. I mean, our mantra was sort of like replayable, replayable, replayable. Like the kind of games we make, you have to be good to your audience because they're your core, and you have to have this sort of back and forth loyalty. And for us, that means, all right, let's make a game that when we give it to them and they pay us their hard-earned money, they feel great about it. And that meant a lot of modding support, making the game much more unpredictable so it's fun every time you play, procedural levels, all that stuff that sort of fuels allowing players to play a lot. I mean, we've just done so many things. A lot of it is adding unpredictable stuff to the game. So, you know, you can build an advanced grenade, but you don't know what kind you're going to get. That's the kind of thing that just, it surprises you and makes you play different every time. You can create all and customize all these characters. They can be scientists and engineers, they can be soldiers, they can be bad guys. And then you have them in this pool, and those characters now will live in every single player game you play. They can show up as recruits, and if there are characters you love in your current game, you can just, save that to the character pool, and now they'll be there forever, and they'll show back up. And so we're like, okay, we have to make sure maps are new every time. And that was a huge technical challenge, but that was the #1 thing people wanted. More mod support for the game that allows people to sort of make new experiences and things like that. And those are all things that are driven basically by our fans saying, hey, these are the things we like.
The other major change in XCOM 2 is a fundamental shift in power between the antagonist and the protagonist. In XCOM 2, the aliens have won. They've successfully invaded Earth, and XCOM is working as a guerrilla resistance force to try and gain back the planet, flying around in their portable base to look into rumors and make contact with new regions.
You know, XCOM, Enemy Unknown, it was stressful because you started with the whole world, you know, and then you started just losing them one by one. It was like, and I remember Sid, when I told him about that, he was kind of like, he's like, so you're playing not to lose? And I'm like, yeah, but it's more fun than that. But we said, all right, well, what if we change the roles to where the aliens rule Earth, and XCOM's job is to sort of attack quickly and build up these, like, take the countries away from the aliens, basically. And so you're going around and you're gathering regions that are under alien control, and you're sort of reversing the whole trend of XCOM, you're reversing in XCOM 2.
One of the many pleasures of playing the first game was finding new areas to fight in and new alien types to fight against. So as expected, XCOM 2 is introducing a host of new environments and alien types. But Jake and the team aren't spilling the beans on all of them just yet.
Lots of new places where the player can play, lots of new map types. You know, we've got everything from these beautiful cities to then you go out to the wilderness where there's just remnants of old civilization. Aliens, we've almost doubled the number of aliens, so there's just tons and tons of aliens. One of the aliens we're just starting to talk about, this is a favorite of mine, is the Faceless. And they're great because they're actual civilians. And so they're walking around these city maps, or like you're going to save somebody, you're going to save civilians on a mission, or you're in concealment here and the aliens are over there and there's civilians talking over here. But any one of those can be a Faceless. So once the Faceless appear, then they basically, like, if you get close to them or if they just see you, you know, the civilian may walk a little closer, you know, and then the next turn they just erupt into this huge, just drippy looking mess of an alien. And so it's great. And we have like the Advent, which is like the sort of soldiers that work as the foot soldiers for the aliens. So that's like a sort of world police force.
I'm excited for XCOM 2. I like the idea of a less predictable and forgiving strategy layer. I look forward to seeing how the new aliens might change the boots on the ground action. And honestly, the idea of flying around the world and making peace with all the countries who decided to cut funding with me back in 2012 sounds pretty great too. But that's not really why I feel optimistic about XCOM. The real reason is because of Jake and the team of men and women working at Firaxis. In 2012, they managed the impossible. For Jake, XCOM isn't just a game, it's his life's work, a series which inspired him to be a programmer, which landed him his dream job, and one he now holds ultimate responsibility for. The last person who's going to allow XCOM to have a by-the-numbers sequel is Jake Solomon.
I have the kind of job that I wake up and I still don't believe it. I mean, I'm in my life, for me, I'm in my lifetime job. Like there's just no interest in me to do something else. Like I wake up and I'm like, great, I got to go make XCOM. And so that's how I always feel. And so I just got very lucky to get this job and have this opportunity. And yeah, it feels awesome.